Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Larry Rhodes.
And I'm Faithless Forrest. And we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for people like them and their friends, committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
Today's show topic will be conservative Christian hypocrisy. But first, we want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors. The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery in the Knoxville area. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's in the Old City. That's Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria, starting around 5:30. Look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. And as Matt Dillahunty of the Atheist Experience always says, everyone is welcome to come down to our happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
Okay. The Rationalists of East Tennessee is a social group that has regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday we have book club. And the fourth Sunday is usually a potluck get-together we call the Reflections meeting. There's talk about doing card games and board games on alternate months as well.
That's cool.
All right, and these things, those would happen in someone's home.
Okay. Later in the show, we'll give you our websites for information, for additional information, including times and locations of the show. Now, in the news.
In the news. Well, from Freedom from Religion Foundation newsletter, I was directed to an article on care2.com by Robin Marty. And the headline just screams, South Carolina wants to make school prayer mandatory. And he writes, most students open the school day with roll call or announcements from their teachers. Some even have class days that begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If a new law gaining momentum in South Carolina passes, however, the students of those schools will have a different morning ritual, prayer. The mandatory moment of silence and teacher-led prayer was proposed nearly a full year earlier, but became embroiled in controversy.
As it will this time, too.
Out of committee. Well, yes, indeed. Now, as the South Carolina legislature is preparing to meet again, a new batch of politicians are preparing to make mandatory school prayer a reality. So, mandatory school prayer is a concept on its own is already a massive assault on the separation of church and state. It would not only be the epitome of state-sponsored religion by, in effect, promoting one faith above the others, but we'd use taxpayer resources, classrooms, school time, and teachers for that promotion.
Not to mention the power of the government being put behind it.
So it's the religious expropriating government property to promote their cause, and against who? Children.
That's right. Without the permission of the parents. Let throw that in there too.
Let's see, as I recall, as written, children would be allowed to step out of the classroom. In other words, draw attention to themselves and
become a pariah.
A target, yeah.
This at a time in their life when that type of thing is very, very important to them. Yeah. They're standing in the class and their perception of other students.
Let's see. The South Carolina lawmakers behind the bill make no attempt to hide the fact that they want school prayer regardless of the means it takes to get there or the form that prayer takes. Quote, the compromise would have to have the students to pray to whomever they want to. If they want to do away with teachers conducting the prayer, that would be fine with us. The essential part of the bill, the important part, is putting prayer back in school. And a reparative Wendell Gillard, a Democrat, is one of the original sponsors. So I just gotta wonder, if they want prayer in school, would they be okay to have prayer to the flying spaghetti monster. So viewers, if imagine your kids being led in prayer, perhaps by the teacher or other students, to the flying spaghetti monster.
Right. To put this in perspective, think about, where was it that had the Church of Satan came in and wanted to put their...
Is it Oklahoma? We spoke about that last week.
Okay, well, let's say that after they put up the Ten Commandments and they had other people coming in with their religions wanting to put up their plaques and their statues, well, they allowed the Satanists, and then they chopped it off, said no more. Because if this had continued, we would have had 37 different religions represented there. Okay. But if we're talking about school time and school resources and teacher-led prayer, we're talking about having Christian prayer, Satanic prayer, Muslim prayer, Hindu prayer. The teacher wouldn't have time to go on to her subjects if we mandated this to happen.
Yeah, and are they going to like have a sign-up sheet so you could sign up however many days in advance for however many religions you got?
Yeah. And to put it plainly, it's against the law for the government to side with any particular religion.
And more importantly, it's a really bad idea.
True. And we have a phone call.
We got a call. Why don't you greet them?
Okay. Welcome to Freethought Forum. May we have a name or a nickname, please?
My name is Arlene.
Did we hear Arlene? Okay, please speak up, Arlene. The speaker's a little low in the studio.
Okay.
Great. Do you have a comment or a question for us?
Yes. I'd be ashamed of myself not believing in God.
So, well, Arlene, it's too bad you didn't stay on the line.
We could have had a conversation.
We'd like to have a conversation, and I encourage you to call back. Because we'd like to ask why.
Not only that, but she doesn't believe in the God of the Muslims. She doesn't believe in the gods of the Hindu. She doesn't believe in any of the other gods that people worship in the world. She believes in one.
You're making an assumption. Arlene, please call back and let us know.
Sorry, she could be Hindu, but some reason I doubt it.
Yeah, all righty. So I guess the caller said I'd be
ashamed. Actually, I'm very proud to have gotten past the religious upbringing and brainwashing that Christianity is pretty much forcing on most of the children in America today. It takes quite a bit of thought processes and education to get past that kind of brainwashing and to make it to a state of non-belief. And it takes a lot of time to go through the process as well.
Well, let's see. Have we covered this South Carolina issue? I guess we'll, kind of be keeping our ear to the ground, see how if the South Carolina legislature continues this nonsense or not.
Yeah. Well, let me just read this quote from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Individual, silent, or did you already read that?
No, I didn't.
Personal prayer never has and never could be outlawed in public school. In other words, prayer is still in school. If your child wants to pray in school, they have a perfect right to do that, and indeed they do all the time.
So long as they're not disrupting class activities.
That's
they
right.
cannot hijack the other students' time.
Right. And we can't have government employees imposing any particular prayer on any people, any children in the class. The courts have declared government-fostered prayer, the quote continues, unconstitutional. Those led, required, sanctioned, scheduled, or suggested by officials. It is dishonest to call any prayer voluntary that is encouraged or required by public official or legislation. By definition, if a government suggests that the students pray, whether by penning the prayer, asking them to vote whether to pray, or putting aside time to pray, it is endorsing and promoting that prayer. It is coercive for schools to schedule worship as an official part of the school day, school sports, or activities, or to use prayer to formalize graduation ceremonies such as prayer. Such prayer are more mandatory than voluntary. And that was a quote from the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
All righty. Well, like I say, I'll be trying to keep an ear to the ground on that.
In other news, it's interesting that an Afghani man, an atheist, has been granted religious asylum in the United Kingdom, in Britain. He is from Afghanistan. He said he would face persecution on the grounds of religion if he were made to return to his homeland. or in this case, his lack of religious belief. The case, believed to be the first of its kind, was submitted to the Home Office under the 1951 Refugee Convention. Legal support in this case was provided free by the Kent Law Clinic, which is pro bono service provided by students and supervised by qualified practicing lawyers from the University of Kent's Law School, with help from local solicitors and barristers. The man involved fled to the UK from a conflict involving his family in Afghanistan and was allowed to stay in the UK until 2013, a university spokesman said. He was brought up as a Muslim, but after arriving in the United Kingdom, I wish they'd just say England, age 16 in 2007, he gradually turned to atheism. The case involved the law clinic lodging an extensive written submission with the Home Office, drawing on recent Supreme Court decisions and including detailed evidence that the man's return to Afghanistan could result in a death sentence under Sharia law as an apostate, someone who has abandoned their religious faith unless he remained discreet from his about his atheist beliefs.
And if he's already spoken about it, that cat is out of the bag, to use a feline metaphor.
Right. It's just another place where, in the world where religion mandates a person gives up his freedom of speech in order to escape persecution from that religious organization.
All righty. Well, I guess we wish him well. It's unfortunate the world is like that. I've seen some traffic on some of our atheist blogs that there's a surprisingly large number of countries in the world where they have like official death sentences for non-belief. I believe Saudi Arabia is like that.
It's one of the reasons that Richard Dawkins always brings up this in debates when he has debates with Muslim leaders. He says one of the questions he always brings up: what happens to somebody in your religion if they quit the religion? And then the imam or a religious leader will always hem and haw because they won't say we kill them. You know, which is what Richard Dawkins is trying to bring to the attention of the audience.
All righty. Well, shall we move to the main topic of today's program?
Yeah. Let me start off. I was personally born in a Southern Baptist family in West Tennessee. My mother was a pretty religious woman and pressured me into getting baptized when I was about 10 years old. My father, who was a World War II veteran, wasn't very religious, but even so, he would sometimes refer to the old man upstairs, and he would say prayers at meals. I was a believer growing up, and in high school, and 4 years in the Navy, serving during the Vietnam War eras, I was a believer. I went to church only occasionally as a child. My mother was always said that the churches were full of hypocrites and wouldn't take us. I mean, she wouldn't take us to the church.
Oh.
That is, they professed that the values of Jesus, but would not live by them. Today, it's obvious that hasn't changed much, if at all. From the rhetoric you hear every day from Christian conservatives, Jesus' values have pretty much been forgotten. You can expect lip service from them, but hardly any action along those lines. Apparently, they don't see the hypocrisy of condemning and complaining about liberals all week and then going to church on Sunday and worshiping one.
Oh, my goodness. So, Larry, let me ask you a few questions about that. So I grew up non-religious, for the benefit of viewers, and I didn't realize there were like divisions within Christian believers about the methods and practices of baptism. And I guess it was only after coming to live in Tennessee that I realized that there's some people that say, well, you can't get baptized until you're an adult and, in a sense, know what you're doing, and they do this full submersion. They walk out into rivers and streams. So would your Southern baptism involve this full submersion of a 10-year-old?
Yes, it was.
How young would Southern Baptists allow baptism?
I would think as young as 7 or 8. Pretty sure, but don't forget that Catholics baptize their as babies, or they call it christening, but it's a form of baptism. Well,
and in fact, although I was pretty insulated from the details of Christian belief, I remember once as probably in my teens, seeing a photograph of my father as what must be I think he was sitting on his own. So he's an infant, maybe 6 months old, in a dress, you know, a frilly waist thing.
Yeah.
And when my grandmother said, "That's your father," in his christening dress, I then, of course, had to ask what that was all about. And I guess I also grew up around enough Catholics where I get the impression that they sprinkle water on people. And I assume, but don't know, that my father would have been christened in that pretty dress by having water sprinkled on him, not dunked.
No, probably
You don't
not.
dunk a 6-month-old?
No. Well, I mean, as far as I understand, Catholics don't dunk the babies in water.
And grandmother was Lutheran. I don't know if there's a particular branch, but they would have used the word Lutheran.
But if you can imagine that you're 10 years old and you've got every adult and every friend and every acquaintance that you've met in church and have any religious affiliation with, urging you to go down and give your soul to Christ, which means, of course, that you will be baptized, there's not much you can do about it. There's not much a 10-year-old can much of a resistance a 10-year-old can put up.
Not successfully, anyway.
No.
So it's hard to think that when it comes to government policy, the Christian right opposes just about everything Jesus stood for and talked endlessly about. You know, I've read the Bible, I've read the Sermon on the Mount, and you know, I think he's displaying compassion for his fellow human being there, as well as a kind of an obligation to help his fellow human being when he says that one of the ways that you cannot get into heaven unless you give up your possessions, you know, sell them and
give them to the poor, specifically. But I found an internet meme. It's a cartoon that plays on Charlie Schultz's Peanuts characters that might illustrate this pretty well. If we can go through that before we get much farther in this.
Well, I like Peanuts.
If you've noticed this meme on the internet, then you know where we're going. But in the meantime, we're going to do a little skit for you here. Do you want to be Linus or do you want to be Lucy?
Oh man, I'm going to have to find my text. All right, well, so I guess this is Lucy saying, who has the first line here?
Lucy.
All right, I'll be Lucy.
Okay.
See if I can put on a Lucy voice. Americans should get back to biblical Christian principles.
So you feel that we should feed and shelter the poor?
No, I'm not for paying a lazy person.
We should visit and comfort prisoners?
No, they don't deserve that.
We should pay our taxes without complaining?
No, that's my money and I want it.
We should show love and mercy freely?
No, that has to be earned.
But maybe we should avoid violence.
No, we have to take the bad guys out.
Maybe we should be gracious to foreigners?
No, they shouldn't be here.
We should seek to end social injustice throughout the world?
No, that's not our problem.
Then what principles are you talking about?
Opposing gay marriage.
So that's pretty much.
I would kick the football away from, or yank the football away.
That's about where the religious right or the conservative right is nowadays in America. They pick one or two little things in the Bible that agrees with their either racist or homophobic or whatever, fill in the blank, and come down hard on that. All the while they go to church, worship Jesus, and profess that they are a follower of his teachings.
I will confess that I am stupefied when I hear about prosperity congregations.
Yeah.
But you've used a word here that I will say I'm not certain I know exactly what you mean. You talked about conservative Christian hypocrisy, and I want to ask, does conservative equate to fundamentalist?
No. Conservatives basically say that I've got mine, forget everybody else. You know, it's their conservative values. They want to keep the old ways. They want to keep their money. They want to keep. They don't want to pay much taxes.
So it sounds a little bit like laissez-faire libertarianism,
yes,
too.
It does. But fundamentalism refers to people who accept the Bible on a fundamental level.
As in literalist.
Literalist.
Okay.
Say, They think that the earth was literally created in 6 days, that it happened 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, that evolution didn't happen. You could have a conservative that believes in evolution or old earth, but they wouldn't be a fundamentalist.
Okay.
But
all right, I follow what you mean by that. So the things that Jesus wanted us to do, all of that, the religious conservatives seem to be kind of against.
Right. Seems like. Take care of those less fortunate.
Feed the poor,
pay your taxes.
Turn the other cheek when you're struck.
Mm-hmm. Some of the biggest military hawks are Christian conservatives in government. The first thing they want to do is go to war when we have any kind of conflict, and the last thing they want to do is sit down and negotiate with other governments.
Yeah, well, I'm constantly amazed how it seems like, I guess it would be Christian religions, then seem to torpedo peace talks. In the Middle East, you'll see things come to a cusp where there might be some peace talks, and then someone's got to go and throw a bomb into a crowd of kids, whether they're little Israeli Jewish kids or little Palestinian kids.
Yeah, and they usually go back to the Old Testament for the reasons why they do that too. But this is a call-in show. I'd like to remind our viewers that you can call in. The number's at the bottom of the screen, 215-2288. We're talking about conservative Christian hypocrisy, or just hypocrisy in general. If you think we're being hypocritical,
call in and
tell us. The conversation is the thing.
All right, well,
the things Jesus didn't want us to do, but that the religious right is all for, judging others. He says, don't judge others. Don't pray in public, and especially don't pray using vain repetitions. And if you think about it, this would also mean keeping prayer at a school, and this is per Jesus himself.
Yep.
Don't pray in public. And Jesus also said that divorce is adultery. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all came down on that side. He says if you marry another woman, you're committing an adultery. The divorce, what God joins together, no man should put asunder. But conservatives, and just pretty much most of Christians at that point do believe that if a marriage is going badly, that they should go ahead and divorce. But they never mention that. How many people have been rallies all across the country against homosexual marriage, but how many people do you see rallying against divorce?
Or remarriage after divorce.
Right, and these are still Jesus' teachings. It's what he said, and they call themselves Christians. So that's why we call it hypocrisy.
There is an interesting statistic, and it was gathered by a Christian organization whose name, of course, I forget, about divorce rates as a function of worldviews and beliefs. And and they may have been, at that time I read, I may not have understood to make a distinction between fundamentalist versus Christian, or conservative Christians. Mm-hmm. But here in the southeastern United States, amongst strong Christians, they have the highest divorce rate of all groups. Mm-hmm. The lowest divorce rate happens in the New England states, and amongst those who are not churchgoers. The percentage is statistically significant, but it would be something on the order of like 20% of non-believers were having divorce and remarriage, where more like 26 or 27% of strong Christians. Mm-hmm. I guess we got a call. I will do it.
Okay.
Hello, caller. Thank you for calling. And can you give us a name or a nickname, please, so that we know how to address you?
Yes, my name's Roy.
Hello, did I hear Roy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Roy. And thank you for calling today. A comment or question?
Yeah, you were talking about the right-wing Republicans claiming to be the party of God, but I doubt very much of them ever read the Bible. They're pro-life, they call it, which we call anti-choice. And I ran into a couple of them last week who they tell me, I'm going to vote Republican because I'm pro-life and the fetus belongs to God. So I got a little curious and I did a little research. As one guy said, if you want to be an atheist, all you got to do is read the Bible. And the Bible does talk about abortion.
You say does or does not?
Does not.
Well, in Numbers 5, it talks about what to do to a woman who is guilty of adultery. And basically, it says that says here, a jealous and suspicious husband should bring his wife to the local priest who forces the woman to drink a poisonous water of bitterness to bring on God's curse. That's an abortion.
Well,
Now, they don't... Basically, if a woman commits adultery, the man's required to go take her to the priest so she can have an abortion. Now, the religious right, they don't even believe in abortion situations of rape.
Yeah.
All right, well,
But
Roy,
according to
that's
the
an
Bible,
interesting
even
argument. So if I were to try and play Jesus' advocate here, or would it be Jehovah's? That was Old Testament. If I'm trying to play Jehovah's advocate, isn't it that maybe if they're just eating of the holy dust from the floor at the sacrificial altar, that the power of God is going to make them sick, and that they're not talking about abortion at all?
Yeah. In many churches, as far as I know, the one passage that they come down on when they're talking about abortion is the sin of Onan, where he spilled his seed upon the ground rather than impregnating his dead brother's wife. But the thing about it is that God, and by the way, God killed him, of course. That's the punishment.
Jehovah.
Yeah, Jehovah killed Onan for doing that. But the thing about it is, he didn't do it for spilling his seed. In other words, for causing the loss of a potential baby's life. He did it for not impregnating his dead brother's wife, which is what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, he wasn't obedient.
That's right. The obedience and the fact that he didn't follow the law. But they twist it around in churches to say this is why we shouldn't have abortion nowadays.
Well, I assumed that it was because of that passage where it says that, God knows you in the womb, and I knew you in the womb, implying that there's already a relation there. I always assumed that was their argument.
I'm sure that feeds into it too.
Well, I read another passage, I can't remember which one it was. It said that pretty much only God knows when the soul is installed. But here's another one. It was Exodus 21:22-25. It says here, when men strive together and hurt a woman with child so that there is a miscarriage, and yet no harm follows, the one who hurt her shall be fined according as the woman's husband shall lay upon him. And if he shall pay as the judges determine. If any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and so forth. But what they're saying is the price of the baby is to be determined, but you only kill someone. It's only murder if he kills the wife.
Ah.
Now, here is a man who caused a miscarriage. Seems to me a miscarriage or an abortion is a misdemeanor at worst.
Yeah. And what gets me is that if you consider that logic, whoever causes the abortion or the miscarriage, if a woman is pregnant and she loses the child, what are they going to say? It's God's will. What is not God's will. But if you talk to any obstetrician out there, they'll tell you that about 50% of all implanted eggs or all fertilized eggs self-abort.
Right.
So that makes God the biggest abortionist in the history of the world, if he's responsible for all of those going south.
Well, there's other passages in the Old Testament where, the violent God of the Old Testament, who apparently got a little bit more liberal as he went to the New Testament, he talks about ripping the children from women. It's okay to do it as long as they're your enemies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, now you're not supposed to. Well, the whole argument, there's not one place in the Bible where they really specifically address thou shalt not do abortion.
Mm-hmm. And you got.
I doubt any of these right-wing nut jobs out here ever even read the Bible.
Yeah, you got to wonder how many pregnant women were drowned in the Great Flood as well.
Oh yeah, but the innocence.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Here's what I love about the Republicans, though. They're all concerned about the fetuses. Once the child passes through and he's out in the world, then screw it. We're cutting off all aid.
There's the
you're fine as
hypocrisy
long as you're a fetus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the same page with us, Roy. Roy, you were saying something to the effect, perhaps it was Larry, that the Bible doesn't say when the soul is implanted. And I've heard that within Catholic circles, they try to bring some science into that, meaning the insight that we now have with how reproduction works. And it works something like this. A single fertilized ovum can divide, and if the two halves completely separate, you can get twins developing. And so thus the church argues that, well, the soul must be implanted after that because the soul wouldn't have been split in half, that each of the resulting twins has a full soul. But then at a higher number of divisions, at a certain point, if cells were to split off, they cannot form a full viable individual. So thus, the soul is implanted somewhere after the first division, but I think less than 16 cell divisions.
Yeah, but there's also a case where after it divides, it can actually remerge again. So what happens there? Does the soul, some people out there have two souls in them?
Yeah, the fact that all this is being made up ad hoc.
And there's no such thing as a soul.
But here's the Catholic Church again. Now they want to go and they want to say, okay, let's bring science into the mix. As long as it supports what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah, show them scientific proof of anything else. Oh, no, you're wrong. You know? They can't have it both ways. No one even wants to talk about this, but the Catholic Church, as it first was created, the Bible was written in Latin. You know what happened to the people that first tried to translate it from Latin to any other language?
Mm-hmm. They were killed.
Yeah.
They wanted a monopoly on the Bible. They didn't want anybody else to have it. Matter of fact, if you were found in possession of a Bible outside the church, it was a capital crime.
Yeah, well, also because if they actually read it, they might ask questions.
Yeah.
They hate questions.
Well, I learned about that probably in 10th grade history when they spoke about how the Protestant Reformation was happening. I think prior to that, prior to my public education, I didn't realize that there was an important difference between Catholic churches and Lutheran churches. I just assumed that you called one St. Vincent's and the other was called Gethsemane, simply so that you knew which building to drive to. And that the fact that there were what I later learned would be called doctrinarial differences, didn't occur to me. But and I've lost my...
Back to the right wing. I got this. Yep. They are so against homosexuals. Homosexual sex is bad. But the Bible talks more about divorce than it does homosexuals. Yeah. When was the last time you ever saw a right-wing Republican protest divorce?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm sorry, Newt Gingrich couldn't do that, could he? Because he's been divorced, what, twice? Right. But you got to give Newt credit. He did marry both mistresses, okay? I guess that's okay. Mm-hmm. And now he's Catholic. I guess he found Jesus again. Yeah. If they would protest against divorce as much as they would, homosexuality, right, that's been all we've protesting.
Well, to lie with another man with a woman is an abomination, as is eating shellfish, of course. So right. Red Lobster should be thronged with protesters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, when they want to sit up there and say the penalty is death, and they want to pull that little bit out of Leviticus, tell them, hey, have a go at it, but read on, and next time you see your neighbor mowing his lawn on Sunday, it's your biblical duty to kill him.
Now, is it necessary to, gather the whole village to stone him, or can you use modern weapons and your semi-automatic rifle, which we cannot have taken away from us?
Depends on if you're operating under Sharia.
I've got a neighbor with 1,000 rounds on an AR-15. I'm sure he could handle the job. Unfortunately, he's the one mowing his lawn.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you're under Sharia, you can use battery acid, I guess. Well, we're going to take a break and recognize our sponsors. You're welcome to call back in the second half of the show if you like.
Have a good day, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you, Roy.
case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern on community access television channels 6 or 12, depending on your cable network. Tell your out-of-town friends that they can see us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
All right, I'll grab this. We'd like to thank our viewers and send our... Oh, I'm doing the closing. All right. Maybe you better keep going. Okay. I'll catch back up to the break.
This is a call-in show, and we're live today, January 14th, 2014. And viewers can call in now at the number of the screen with a short comment or question. Call in now while we go on an informative break. We've got a little video going.
Play it again, Sam.
The rest of our society will take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
And we're back.
Okay, the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 2 times a week. Well, in the summer we do. But in winter we have meetups of fun, food, drink, and conversation at the Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria in the Old City. It's going on right now, and will probably go until about 8 o'clock. ASK's purpose is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded persons in East Tennessee.
All right, the Rationalists of East Tennessee have Sunday activities involving lively presentations and discussions on topics both timeless and topical. Once a month we get together for book club. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps. Visit rationalist.org to find the book list.
Both the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee help provide a social outlet where that if you find you don't believe in God, you're not alone.
Well, Larry, I think we got another call. You want to greet the caller?
Okay. Welcome to Freethought Forum. May we have a name or a nickname and what your comment or question is?
Yeah, this is Richard.
Hello, Richard.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm not going to get into all the scripture and things like that.
Okay.
I'm somewhat liberal, but there's a movement on the extreme right Christian side to redo some of the, terminology of the King James Version of the Bible to make it more conservative. They thought it was too liberal. This is led, I believe, by Phyllis Schlafly's son. I don't know if you've heard of Miss Schlafly, but she's rather active in the extreme right.
Who did you spell that, or say it again, please?
It's Schlafly.
Schlafly.
Yeah, it's a challenge to say it when you look at it.
All right, go ahead.
But she's pretty active on all the right-wing causes. But I see your heading was Jesus, a Republican. I kind of look at Jesus more as a compassionate, independent,
really,
or a Democrat. That's the way I would look at it. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
I just don't know how much politics was enter into that, but you see many people on the right, in particular that Westboro Baptist Church out in Kansas. They just, to me, they're an embarrassment.
Yeah, well, we were talking about conservative Christians, and I think they just put that up there because when they say that, you would automatically think Republican.
Oh yeah, they wrap themselves up. Many that I've seen, either you're a conservative Christian or you're a conservative, but you can't be a Christian. I'm a liberal Lutheran. How's that?
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that the people who are trying to take the Bible back and say the Bible's too liberal, I'm sure they're referring to what Jesus said and not any of the other stuff. But the thing about it is, what's funny is that the people who killed him were killed Jesus pretty much because he was too liberal. In other words, it was the conservatives of the time killing Jesus because he was too liberal. And
the Pharisees of Jerusalem, yes.
Yeah, and here we have the modern day conservatives saying the same thing. It just kind of makes you wonder if they'd kill him if he was available now to do so.
Well, I don't know about killing him, but, as one says, or people have said, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. And
sure.
We've done that quite a bit.
To be sure.
But I just wanted to point that out. If you want to do some research on it, look up, I believe his name was Philip Schlafly. But if you look up Phyllis Schlafly, you'll just see all kinds of stuff on her. I mean,
okay.
Anybody has a right to their beliefs, but why would we change anything?
I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, Richard, is this the first time you've watched us? Richard, are you still there?
And he's gone, I guess.
Oh, dear.
Oh, well.
Well,
continuing on, I guess.
I was hoping to hear if he's local, and thank you for calling in, Richard.
For sure.
All right. And I have no idea where we left off.
So, we just finished up with divorce, so it should be after that.
All right. Looking at the future, Matthew and Luke, Jesus tells us not to give a thought for tomorrow. It's hard to find a bunch more attuned to worldly goods and building wealth than conservative Christians. Yeah.
Matthew and Luke both says Jesus said, "Don't prepare for the future."
Yeah, it will take care of itself, something like that.
Yeah.
Look at the sparrow; he neither sows nor reaps, but God takes care of him. And you humans are so much more worthwhile in His scheme. He must be prepared to take care of you.
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. Okay, and for those who say that the Old Testament doesn't matter anymore, since Jesus gave us a New Testament and a new covenant, we have to remind you that the ever-present 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament. Are you ready to say that they don't matter anymore? Jesus himself said that the old laws matter very much. In Matthew, he said, "For truly I will tell you, till heaven and earth pass away, not an iota nor a dot will pass the law until all is accomplished. Whoever then relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called in the least in the kingdom of heaven, and he who does them and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven."
Right.
I was surprised it didn't say jot or tittle.
Yeah, this is the Revised Standard Version.
All right, I guess I'm impregnated with the King James Version myself.
Considering that God is theoretically also Jesus, He very much expects us to keep all of His 613 commandments. Yes, there are a lot more than just 10. This means don't eat pork in Deuteronomy. Don't call anybody but God your father. And it's funny that the Catholics especially want you to call their priests father. Women, it says, women, you must marry your rapists.
And not just once, but...
No, it says it in Exodus and Deuteronomy.
All right.
So that's a law, and this comes directly from God in the Old Testament. But remember, God is Jesus, and Jesus says to obey all the laws. So if you're a Christian, you should be obeying all the laws, especially if you call yourself a Christian, unless you want to be considered hypocritical.
All right, bastards, that's illegitimate children, can't enter the Lord's congregation, nor can their descendants, even until the 10th generation. I guess at the 11th, then it's okay?
I guess so.
It wears off?
It wears off.
Also, anyone wounded on the stones, that's testicles, can't enter the Lord's congregation. So do they inspect?
Yeah, really, you got to wonder.
Okay.
That means that people in Afghanistan and Iraq can come back and they've got been shot down there. They can't go to church anymore.
They can't enter the Lord's congregation.
According to the Bible, the laws, the commandments of the Bible.
Women should not adorn themselves with braiding of the hair, gold or pearls or costly attire. That's 1 Timothy and
1 Peter.
Think what that would do to your typical Christian conservative Sunday raiment.
They just have to wear the blue jeans, okay? No, not jeans,
no
because that
pants.
would be pants. Can't have that. Women should not be given authority over men, 1 Timothy. Think of the hypocrisy present in the female Republican representatives and senators that are currently holding posts in government while espousing Jesus' teachings. I mean, there are women standing in the halls of government right now, lording over the men of their congregation, their
The congressional body.
Not only that, but the people in their district.
Oh,
the constituents.
Yeah. There we go.
And still espousing that they're Christians and following Jesus' teachings when they have this right here saying women don't have authority over men. It also says, do not consult mediums or wizards. Leviticus and Deuteronomy both say that. And Christians, more than any other American demographic, consult mystics and psychics.
So, all right, Christians, do not tattoo your skin. Man, whenever I see a guy with a cross tattooed on his arm. Do not lend money to other Christians at interest. So, you got to lend it interest-free.
All these bankers that go to church on Sunday, they should not be lending money to their fellow congregants at interest. They should just be loaning it to them free.
All right. If your brother dies, you need to marry his wife. That's Deuteronomy. And you can't wear garments of wool and linen together. So those cotton polyester blends, they're right out.
Don't get me wrong, I'm very glad that Christians don't follow these archaic laws, or at least most of them don't. It's just the hypocrisy of it all that gets me. They go to church, they come out feeling righteous and elevated over us unbelievers because they profess the values that Jesus espoused, but then go right on about their business doing whatever they want to do.
They totally ignore the good things that Jesus said and said to do, and put down those bleeding heart liberals when they do try to help the destitute. They pursue their self-righteous ambitions while ignoring those less fortunate, all the while claiming to be superior simply because they are Christians, while deluding themselves into thinking they are following Jesus' teachings.
Right.
I must just say, whenever I see the bumper sticker that says something to the effect that, I'm not perfect, just forgiven, I can't help but think that that statement right there should be a demerit. Claiming that they're forgiven, that they're in a way, it's sort of like saying, it doesn't matter anymore because I've got my free pass.
Right.
That bumper sticker bothers me a lot.
Yeah, think about the morality of somebody who thinks that they can do whatever they want to and then turn to their invisible friend and ask for forgiveness and get forgiven and then keep on going doing whatever they want. They don't even have to ask for for forgiveness from the person who they have wronged, which is the worst part of it all. At least as atheists, we know that if we do somebody wrong, we've got to get their permission, their forgiveness if we want to get things right with them again.
Whom we must apologize and try to make amends.
That's right.
Here in the real world.
We've got about 10 minutes left in the call-in show. The number's at the bottom of the screen. We do welcome your calls. We're talking about hypocrisy, and whether it's on the Christian side or the believer side or our side, just call in, bring it up. We'll talk about it.
All righty. Well, this knowledge of the Bible that what we've just reading about implies that you got to read the thing and understand it, and then apply a little bit of critical analysis to it. Some years ago, when I realized I needed to get more knowledgeable about the Bible, I read it, and I did that so that I would not be an uninformed critic.
How long did it take you?
Oh, it was a very long time, because it was probably close to 2 years. There's parts that are very tedious to read. There are parts that, as you read it, you said,
I just read that.
What do people who read this, how do they
justify it?
Yeah. How do they rationalize it with what I would think of as normal good behavior, when what you see is that it's a story of often genocide, a belligerent, angry God, a God who will it struck me as amazing when God instructs David to take a census of the Israelis and then punishes him for taking a census.
Yeah. Not only that, but I've often asked Christians when they say that they have read their Bible, I said, well, what did you think about that part in Deuteronomy 52 or something like that? It was late in Deuteronomy, where that if you don't follow all of the 613 commandments, that God will bring you so low. Now, I stopped there because it's like, how cold is it? It's so cold.
It's how low? How low?
Well, there's a whole chapter, like Deuteronomy 58. It's like God will bring you so low that blah 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 blah. It's page after page.
Is
after
that
page.
where you'll be starved to where you'll eat your children?
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you'll do is that you will be so starving that not only will you eat your children, but your wife will keep the afterbirth for herself. And this is the loving God that your Christian will always say that God loves you so much that He would never allow anything bad to happen to you. But there are 613 commandments in the Old Testament, or yeah, they're all in the Old Testament. And Jesus says to keep them all. And if you don't keep them all, God will do this stuff to you. But this is the loving God that you say that is real and watches over you every day. I don't know. I'd be kind of scared if that God was watching over me every day if He existed.
Well, and so as I read it, and I would come to those difficult parts, I very often wanted a believer there because I kept wondering, well, when they go to church, do they get told how to interpret that in some way that was plausible? And I guess on those occasions when I could find and ask someone, usually what I found out is they didn't know what I was talking about.
They don't talk about those in church. They have, I read a report one time when they only talk about 200 stories from the Bible. That's about all any preacher will bring up in church, about 200 stories. And there's always something that will bring home modern Christian morals and drive that home.
Meaning what we would call 20th century morals.
Well, some of them, 20th century morals are much more forgiving of homosexuality than Christian morals. So they will still bring up that story, the story, not even much of a story, it's just a commandment, to put down and prevent homosexuality in their congregation. Although there's not much to it other than just that. But that's one of the things that they'll bring up out of the 200 that they're pretty much going to talk about, and the rest of it they just ignore.
Well, I guess I sometimes think about how they'll do the Noah's Ark stuff. And Noah's Ark is a reason to have children's toys. You got the little boat, you got the animals, and aren't they cute? Kids like playing with animals and doing just pretend. But of course, the kit doesn't come with something where you're going to pour the water on it and drown all the unfortunate people and animals for whom there was not room in the ark.
Yeah.
And I find it actually creepy now when I think about that and see these toys in the toy store. I guess I'm sometimes inclined to also think, well, where's the version that's going to have the 7 clean animals of each kind as well? Yeah. Reading that and going, I wasn't prepared for that when I read it. It's like, what's going on here? No one ever said 7 before, and I guess when they pick and choose those 200 stories, they don't choose the verse that has 7.
No, they don't.
The clean ones.
And not only that, but if you ever, well, first of all, there's no occurrence where you're sitting there in the middle of a sermon. I'm talking from a Baptist perspective, but I can't imagine this in any Christian congregation. The preacher is up there sermonizing, you're out there listening, and you hear something that doesn't sit right with you, and you do this. That's not about to happen. So what do? You generally wait until the sermon's over out of politeness and respect for the preacher, and then when it's time to shake his hand at the end of the thing, you may say, I'd like to talk to you about that. And he'll say, okay, sure, come back tomorrow or whatever, and he'll sit you down in his office, and he'll explain to you as much as you need to know about it to keep you in the fold, keep you in your own little belief bubble. The thing about it is, if he's been to seminary, studied the Bible, sources at all, if he's got any kind of formal education and religious studies, then he knows that nobody knows who wrote the Bible. Nobody knows who wrote the epistles, the books of the New Testament. We have people who have written two things under the same name. We've got changes that have been made to all of these documents throughout the history of Christianity. But he's not going to tell you any of that. He's going to go right back to fundamentalism as far as that he goes, and just try to tell you just enough to keep you in the fold, keep your bubble of belief intact.
All righty. Well, Larry, we're coming, and viewers, we're coming down to the end of the show time here, and when I was on the show last time, I gave a viewer challenge, and we haven't gotten any emails or calls, but I wanted to address that, and what the discussion was about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is one of only two places in our Constitution where there is some sort of a where it contains text that describes why that's there. The Second Amendment, and even that, there's more than one Second Amendment depending upon which document you go to, but the one passed by Congress and preserved in the National Archives reads like this: a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So the right of the people to keep and bear arms is to support the goal of being necessary.
So it gives a reason right there with the law.
And I was going to give the second place in the Constitution where that happens, but I think viewers are going to have to tune in another time because we got one last call. Let's do it quick.
Okay.
Hello, caller. This is Freethought Forum. Please give us a name and a nickname quickly, and a comment or a question quickly.
Okay, Joan, I'd like to answer Larry's question about whether anyone ever asked a question of a minister in church. My brother did.
What happened?
Well, he stood up and argued with the minister because he said the minister was not being strong enough. The minister was saying that something that he disagreed with, and my brother didn't think the minister was emphasizing the poor and how you should give money to the poor. He was more of a prosperity kind of minister. So it wound up with an argument, and then my brother walked out. And
they don't usually end well, do they?
No. And then they checked out the other churches in town, and he became a Baptist.
Yeah.
And so what faith was he leaving?
A Calvinist, I think, a Presbyterian.
Okay, I was just about to ask for clarification on that because I don't think I've ever seen a church labeled Calvinist church.
No, no. Okay, I'm not positive about this, but
I'm sure it could happen.
I had never heard of anyone else have that happen. But of course, he also got kicked out of McDonald's once for complaining about cigarette ashes.
Well, I'm sure McDonald's have had a few complaints, but the church doesn't like questions, especially questions in front of the rest of the congregations. That's for sure.
And the minister at the Baptist church eventually told him, when you first walked into my church, I thought, that's that man who argues with the minister. But you've been a very good person. I'm glad you came.
Yeah. Have you watched our show before? Is this your first time?
I watch it all the time.
Oh, well, good. And you know about our groups and how to find us if you want.
Yes,
okay.
I do.
All right, Joan.
Real good.
Okay. Bye.
Well, thank you for calling in and sharing that with us. I will be thinking about that the next time we have the hypothetical about asking questions in the church. It does happen a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess it's time to start wrapping things out. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Faithless Forrest.
And I'm Larry Rhodes. Please send us some feedback. You can leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
Yeah, please, viewers, email us and tell us where else in the Constitution there is a clause that justifies the regulation or power or whatever that follows. You can see this show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on these Knoxville stations. It's 6 and 12 depending on your cable system. And anywhere you can get the internet at ctvknox.org.
We'd like to thank our viewers and callers and send our thanks to Sam and Jonas for technical support and to the staff of CTV Knox.
Nuns are the fastest growing religious group in America. Right here in East Tennessee, atheists and agnostics are part of the Rationalists of East Tennessee.